Okay, everybody keeps stealing my helmets, but I think we're good to go. Tyrants! Tyrants, did you steal the Crusader helmet again? Where's the... Shad! Of all the people, I need the helmet for the video that you asked me to do.
But it's really cool!
It is really cool, but I need the helmet to do the video.
Can't I just keep wearing it like all day?
Well, I mean, then I can't tell everybody about the barrel helm. I kind of need it. Go on. Go on. You know you want me to talk to everybody about the helmets. Come on. You know you want to. I'll get back to you at the end of the day. Okay. Please up with this helmet and everybody taking it. I mean, I don't really see the big thing behind this, but I suppose I'll... Oh, yeah.
Shadowversity.
Greetings, I'm Nate, and today on Shadowversity we're going to be talking about medieval helmets, specifically what it's like to fight in these things. So for your adventuring parties, you'll know exactly what helmet to pick. Now, we have a small selection of helmets here today, mostly medieval helmets. Special thank you to the Geelong Crusaders as well as Seraph from Geelong for supplying all of these amazing helmets so that we can talk about them. But we're not going to just be talking about them. We're going to be putting them on. We're going to be doing some combat testing. We're going to grab steel blades and actually hit them at all sorts of angles, as well as LARP swords and try to stab up and around the weak points. But for that, we're going to need somebody else. So, Tyrants! Tyrants!
Hey,
I already said no with that one.
What's up? Did you need something? Oh, we're testing them.
Yeah, you're going to get to hit me, I get to hit you. Like, you were going to put a helmet on that.
No.
What do you mean no?
I don't want to mess up my hair.
Well, I have to mess up mine.
Well, you don't have any, so you got that luxury.
There's stubble.
You have an unnatural advantage in this situation.
Unnatural advantage.
Yes.
You heard that? People with no hair all around the world, we have an unnatural advantage. We don't get helmet hair. Now, we're not going to be talking about just hyperbole.
So continue. I'm just going to... I'll pass them to you as you need them. Don't worry.
Sure. Here, the reason being is because I've got about 20 years, hence the grey hair and being called old, I think he likes that helmet, of experience of fighting in all of these different helmets. So I can not only talk about how it feels to have blind spots taken away, how it feels to breathe in them, how hot it actually gets, and not just picking up a helmet and taking an assumption. I've fought in these things. So yes, not these exact ones, but all different types of helmets.
Oh, which one's the best out of your professional opinion?
Let's get to that. Let's get back to that. We will get to my personal opinion of the best looking as well as the best one to fight in as we go through the video.
Best looking.
Not my opinion, but let's start with the Roman Ridge helmet. So,
oh, look, it has ear protection, like no fingies, but with ears.
No fingies, but with ears. It's more like a sideburn protection. Now, this is a pre-Viking helmet. It's called a Roman Ridge helmet. It is missing its iconic ridge, so it's a bit of a modern interpretation, but this is stealing from Celtic designs and Vendel designs, where you've got these giant sideburns to protect against shots to the side of the head. You've got big area on the back to protect anything, not only hitting you in the back of the neck, but when shots come down on your shoulders. And a nasal to give you a bit of face protection. These helmets have a lot of great design features. They're really, really good.
So, I am curious, because I am a noob when it comes to helmets.
Sure.
Forgive me. So this is not historically accurate?
Not quite. So this is closer to a modern interpretation of one of these Roman Ridge helmets.
Right. Was there like a spike here? Like, is this just a defect?
So the original helmet, this isn't a defect. If we zoom in here, you'll actually see that there is basically putty in that area. Now the reason being is originally this had a small brass neck and horsehair coming off the top.
Oh, cool.
So it was a lot more decorative at the time, but to show the modern interpretations, why we kind of keep this one on the table is the inside of it, although moderately well engineered, you can see there are exposed bolts. I put this against my head, it's going to quite literally dig into my head, even with, I look like a medieval peasant now.
Yes, but you need the cap, right?
You do, but if you watch, the height of this helmet, when you put it on, is too much.
I don't know,
But-
I'm kind of digging it.
Do you want to try it?
No, I do
With
not.
that hair?
No, I do not.
But this one is just a display helmet. It's not a combat helmet like a lot of these other ones. Though the cheek protection, I think we actually give a little bit of a test later.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
unless of course you want to test it now.
You want to test it now? How big of a test?
I reckon you can hit me with it.
Is this going to be a medieval myth-busting episode?
Potentially.
Oh, okay. I'm excited now. You've got my attention.
Okay, how about I put this on with some padding and we'll actually smack the side of my face with a steel sword.
Medieval myth-busting today. All right.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
But we may have to get Super Hulk Tyrant here to pull these shots
Yeah,
a little bit back.
I'm going to be careful today, probably. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, you go grab
the
a sword.
helmets. They should protect you.
You go grab a sword and I'll talk about a few others that we don't actually have here, but are very similar designs. Now, the Sutton Hoo helmet is an early Anglo-Saxon helmet that had a full face covering. Hey, you got the piece knot done quickly.
So we're testing. You said testing, so
Yeah.
I'm ready to test.
Okay, you're ready to test very early. Did have a full face covering, which is one of the flaws of these helmets. You can get stabbed in the face very easily, and we've got archaeological finds from this era, well before, well after, of lots of face damage.
Of course.
Lots of face
You
damage.
got a lot of open space.
Open
here.
space, but you kind of need that to breathe, which we're going to cover how well you breathe in a lot of these other helmets as we go through. Some of them, very surprising, you can breathe really well. This one you can obviously breathe really well and see really well. So to give you an idea, this is what a Sutton Hoo helmet would look like. You're very much blocked down here. You can't quite see what's coming at you. So I could be swinging at you, and sure, you know what to do, but if I sort of change that up to a stab, it's very hard to judge anything below your vision. Plus, it's very hard to speak, which we're going to get to when we get to some of these other helmets. And apart from the Sutton Hoo helm, there was also something called the Spangle helm. Now, the Spangle helm sometimes had a nasal, did not have anything at the back of the head, but did have these I love these sideburns, did have these really good sideburns. Even though they did go out of combat fashion shortly after the Spangle helm, I still think we should test these. How do you feel about me putting on some padding and you smacking me sideways up the head?
Lightly.
Lightly.
Lightly. Yes, that is fine.
Sounds good.
If it makes that sound more, I am on board.
It's probably, as long as it doesn't make the sound of smashing teeth,
Yeah.
I'm on board. Now, I know I currently look like a
historical enthusiast.
very new historical enthusiast
Yeah.
because, like I said, this helmet doesn't fit right, but it's the only ones we have with this protection on it. So, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Not bad. And I'm going to take this off because I actually look silly as.
Yes, I enjoyed that.
I'm sure you did. Now, that, although probably may or may not have broken a jaw or cut into a jaw, that was light.
That was,
That was very light.
I cannot explain how light that was. It was
Yeah.
like, it didn't even register on my scale of strength. It was just my arm going like this.
Exactly. But you still wouldn't want to cop that to the face,
Especially with a sharpened blade.
especially with a sharpened
no,
blade.
no.
Now, the steel on this isn't exactly the greatest armored steel, so we're taking it light. We get to some actual heavy armor later.
Sorry, I just
He
like
really
that
likes that
I
sound.
like that sound. Maybe I am into ASMR. Who knows, man? Cut that. Cut that.
Put it in!
That is getting cut.
Now, we also have Viking helmets. If you
Viking.
can pass me the one that looks like it's got spectacles, which funnily enough, they're actually called spectacle helms. So we call them spectacle helms because otherwise we've got to name them by the archaeological dig sites that we found them in. So there's one at Jarmenbu, my Norwegian's not that great, as well as one that was found at a dig site in Bro.
Bruh. What?
Yeah, Bro.
You rolled them in. Okay. All right.
But these are the iconic Viking helms. Sometimes
Viking. Well, Viking. So they didn't have horns?
No. Okay.
So every 80s fantasy movie ever is...
It's amazing.
Yeah, but they don't have horns.
No. So the Vikings didn't, I'm sure a lot of you know, Vikings didn't have the horn helmets.
But I mean, they didn't have horns, so now
No.
I don't know what to do
But
with
there
myself.
was one that was pre-Viking.
Wait. So did none in history ever have horns?
No, some helmets did have horns and crests. We're going to
Okay.
get to the Great Helm later that definitely had
So,
horns.
so it's not a lie then. Okay, cool.
Some had horns. My personal opinion is Vikings actually rode battle cows, and it was only the perception of the
What?
And it was only the perception of the monks looking up through the battle cows that actually made the Vikings look like they had horns. It's personal opinion. They probably didn't ride cows, but I like to use this as my headcanon.
I think I need Shad here for this part. Wait, what? Battle cows.
They didn't ride battle cows, but there were pre-Vikings called Vendels that did actually have bronze helmets that had big Loki horns sticking up out of them. But for Vikings, they didn't have horns. Now, for a good few hundred years after this, we do have the nasal helms, which you can take a look at. Tyrants, you want to do Sail of the Century hands there? More fingers, more fingers. Now, these helmets were really great. They lasted for a few hundred years and were very fashionable for quite a few reasons. Namely, because of the nasal on the helmet itself and the peak. So it gets into a few different things with this, but let's talk about the nasal. I am so glad you don't have a musical career.
Come on, man. Like, look how many helmets there is there. Come on, do something. Give it a go, come on. See, how fun is that?
It's very fun,
That's
actually.
what I'm talking about. Thank you.
I want to do it with swords. I have a theory about these nasals. So let's take the Nezdovo helmet, which is a Russian helmet. Gorgeous, gorgeous example of a nasal. And around about this time, there was a lot of shield wall combat. One of the theories that I think is because there was so much shield wall combat and you were really close to your opponent, you would have this stop any shield bashing coming straight into the face, stop a lot of broken noses. Because anybody that's had a broken nose knows that when you get hit, you'll take a step back. It's not the greatest thing. So what I'm going to do is put on one of these helmets, specifically a Norman style nasal. And Tyrants,
yes.
I think you can smack me in the face a couple of times. What do you reckon?
Sounds good to me.
All right, before you hit, do not try this at home. We are professionals. It looks like we muck around a lot, and there is a lot of fun here to be had at Shadiversity.
There is a lot of fun, and we're not joking. Do not try this at home.
Do not try this at home.
Just don't.
Tyrant is a professional. I also have 20 years experience. We know how to swing this so it's safe. We're just showing this as an example. So,
And I am not even swinging hard.
no, he's not.
It might look like I'm swinging hard, but I'm genuinely not.
We'll show a quick clip of how strong Tyrant can actually be when he puts 100% of his shot in.
We don't have to do that,
And
but
then-
okay. I'm going to say it again. This is very soft. This is very. I'm not going to be trying to hit him. I'm going to be up here, closer up here, because I do not want to be hitting down here.
No.
I don't want to be hitting with the tip. It's up here, about right there.
So,
Safety first.
and also I'm going to be closing my eyes in case there's any burrs come off the blade. So I would not want to get hit in the face without a nasal on like that, because that would instantly break a nose.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even like doing that, to be honest.
No.
Because this is like, if you're in combat, it's better than nothing. Let's be clear about that. But it's still not like...
No, we are going to talk about proper armor angling later. But let's have a quick talk about why I felt so safe in this helmet right now. So if we go to any other Norman over here that has, admittedly, a fairly thick bar of steel there, it's still just a flat piece of steel. Whereas this one that I just picked up before is specifically angled.
Let's see if we can get that on camera.
So you can see, I might put it up against black so you can see it a bit better. It has a ridge.
Sorry, I'm just going to put this here.
Yep,
So,
it has a ridge on it. Very light ridge, but a ridge nonetheless. And the bar of steel is very, very thick, and it is one single solid piece with the helmet. So there's no chance that it will start to bend without seeing that crack forming first, which, as you can see, this is a heavy duty helmet. This is the one that I wear during medieval training. I trust this helmet, and I do thank the people who made this one. So you can also see far more aggressive angle on this one, where that structure helps to strengthen that nasal.
this is just for the angle. This is one piece, so this is what we're talking about, but you can actually see more aggressively the angle on this particular one. It has this angle, it's a little harder to see on camera.
It is. So for adventurers, something they might want to consider is if they're in combat, they're getting really close with shields or things keep smacking them in the face, a fighter might go, I need a nasal because that's going to stop my nose getting broken so much. One of the reasons that I chose this specifically is because you can see almost perfectly, with the exception of a bar of steel in front of your face, kind of looks like this. And funnily enough, your brain will remove that gap, like it will with most blind spots. And you can...
Like it does with your nose.
Like it does with your nose. You can look and see your nose, but only when you look to see your nose. In fact, on the Bayeux Tapestry, there is evidence of William the Conqueror lifting a nasal helmet from his head so his troops could see him and prove that he wasn't dead, because the nasal was so thick that it basically obscured his face. But it was obviously not so thick that he couldn't fight around it. Your brain removes these. Plus, you can breathe so easily and you can see everything in them. I love these things. Now, these weren't worn by themselves. They're obviously worn with coif. This is a chain coif. This is a padded coif, and that white one there.
Oh, I thought this was the little baggie we hold them in.
No, this is just, you can put this on, it won't mess your hair up.
I don't really want to look like a peasant even more.
Oh, God. Whereas this one...
Hold on, I want to see this. Go on, do it. I want to see it.
Yes, you look like a medieval peasant. This one is just a coif, which may look a little silly and may look a little medieval peasant, but you really did need this. Imagine not having a hat, having a shaved head, and going out in the sun.
I kind of like it.
Because I look like a peasant?
Maybe, leave a comment down below if you think this should be Nate's permanent.
But there is an order of operation with these. So I will get you to pass me these in the specific order. Now, it has been noted that this order of operation isn't necessarily correct, but for the most part, when we look at the evidence, and there's a lot of evidence of these nasal helmets being worn, not just in historical finds, but mostly in illuminations in Bibles, that it was coif first, then padded coif, then chain coif. Now, this isn't real chain, this is just what we call butted mail for a mail coif. But the order of operation was most of the time this. Although there is some theories that you could wear padding on the outside of the chain and it can have some help for armor, that sometimes you will wear this to dampen the blow before it hits you. And when we get to some of the great helms, having extra padding can really help. Now, we do get to one that I like to call the murder helm, which doesn't look like much. But the reason that I like to call it the murder helm, it's a helmet that was discovered in a manuscript called The Murder of Thomas Becket, where you've got someone wearing one of these, which is great for shots coming in sideways to the side of the face, not so great for stabs, and still leave you plenty of room to see and to breathe. But it does cover everywhere that there isn't a chain coif. Crown. Said lie! I said lie!
That was live.
No! Covering, as you can see in the illumination. Illumination, by the way, just kind of means medieval picture. Not really, but close enough for this video. These helmets, again, are great for adventurers. They are so simple. They should be so cheap to build. In fact, someone who has a blacksmithing proficiency should be able to knock out one of these in a few hours. Now, the Murder of Thomas Becket actually has two types of helmets. One with a round top, and one that's got a flat top, like this. But it's for good reason, because around about this time, we got these helmets really start to become prominent, and these were seen a lot. Before we talk about the Crusades, I really want to talk about the tops of these helmets. Now, this one, as you can see, is peaked specifically left and right. What that does is it creates some armor angling so that when you get hit, the shots will glance off. I'll find Tyrant in a minute and we'll give it a bit of a shot. But with these ones, if you get hit a little on the side, a little to the left, a little to the right, doesn't matter so much. Whereas if you have someone with a giant two-handed axe hit you and land a shot right in the center of the head, even if the armor holds out, all of that force goes into your neck. So we'll come back to the enclosed helmet in a minute, but the reason that I like the Norman nasal is because of that armor angling. You really can't get hit right in the center of the helmet. Everything deflects. It's like a bat phone. He's just here.
We are ready to hit. Ready, more
sure, but it's going to deflect a little bit. So I want to at least put on a gorget or something. So.
All right, fine. All right.
Okay.
I heard we were hitting things.
Nope.
No, Shad. No. Go.
But I never get to hit anything with the Becket Corbin.
Go. Go. That'll kill him. That will kill him. Go. Go, Shad. Come on.
I mean, it's still really cool. Can I have a look at least?
If I get to hit you.
Okay, so let's actually test this with some safe weapons.
Yeah.
So you can see it deflects quite well, but if you take a look at, this is gonna hurt. Let's give this a test and you'll see how much the blows that way.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you know, what would happen if I went like that? I'm not going to.
We're gonna talk about that in a minute, but how much the blows just comparatively stop or deflect. Let's find out.
Let's give it a go. You all right?
That's enough. Okay.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one. That one was actually fun. We are professionals doing professional
Yeah, no,
things.
we are professionals now. But to talk about this, so I'm going to throw this back on. That is not your cue to hit me.
Okay.
I'm going to throw this back on to explain a couple of things about breathing and talking. So when I throw this closed helmet on, you can hear that my voice is a lot different, but it's harder for you to be heard. Vision is great, and the breathing, as you can see, with that little bit of protrusion, especially compared to something like the Sutton Hoo helmet, which is right up against your face, is really, he's putting on a helmet. Ladies and gentlemen, zoom in.
It's not touching my hair, don't worry. It's not touching my hair.
But especially,
It smells like steel.
it does, especially compared to the Sutton Hoo helmet, which is right up against your face. They're just hard to breathe in. They heat up quite well. Now, compared to the Italio Norman or the Ciclio Norman helmet, I'm always wondering like where Tyrant is. He appears behind me randomly.
You called.
So as I was saying, you can breathe a little easier out of this because of that bill and the hole, the opening at the bill. Now this was worn with a male coif, but I think what we'll do is we'll get some LARP swords. I'll wear a few different helmets.
You called.
And he's so ready to hit me. And then you can try to stab me up into the face with LARP swords. So let's give that one a shot. This doesn't fit. Oh well, the deal is you have to stab me in the throat.
Yes, that's quite easy.
So we're gonna see if you can stab me in the throat while I'm kind of blinded. I'm just gonna do this. I'm not gonna properly defend. I'm just gonna do this and you just need to find that opening and go.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously, nasal helmets, if you don't defend, that weak point is very exposed. Now, this is really close to the face. The question is, if I'm just doing this,
Right.
can you get up and into the throat? I feel like that might have stopped. That might have been stopped. I mean, he's stabbing me here, but I'm not feeling like it's quite going up in there. There we go. So how many shots did that actually take?
Well, I mean, I actually tried on that one. So.
Okay, so what, you're counting that as one?
Yeah.
We'll try the Sicilio or Italio. Metatron, you can correct me on this if you want. This Norman helmet. So as you can see, you can now hear me a lot clearer and I can breathe a lot easier. I'm not feeling like my breath is heating up the helmet. But the problem is that this is probably going to be far easier. Like a test shot, no defense, far easier to get up and in. This was worn with a male coif, but still, if I just start, and this is just a pendulum defense, how many more of these shots are getting up and in? Well, that one hit the helmet.
Yeah.
And how many more shots of these are getting up and in to the helmet? I'm gonna hit you.
You said to do it, so I did.
So again, you don't really need to be such a quack shot to get a shot in underneath this. Hence why they wore mail underneath these. Now the enclosed helm actually moved on to become the Great Helm, but before then we had one of my favorite helms, which is the kettle helm. These things were worn usually by the lower class, but they are great. And let me show you why. With a simple bit of padding, you throw this on and you are really well protected. And admittedly, it's a great sun hat on a day like today, but your vision is completely unimpaired, maybe with the exception of the tiniest little bit from above, but that's protective. As well, you have no problem breathing, you have no problem yelling or listening for commands. But the great thing about this brim is how much protection it gives you. If you have a shot coming into the face, you can tilt down and it gets stopped by the brim. And it is a natural human reaction to tilt to get out of the way of things, the flinch. If you have shots that are coming down like raining arrows and blackening the sky with arrows, you can tuck in with a pair of gauntlets and you have a shield all the way around. Plus, these are great versus cavalry because anyone that is on a horseback is swinging down, which means you are now almost completely covered without doing really anything. The only problem is when you get hit, kind of sounds like a cymbal sometimes. I wasn't ready for that one. So, by just tilting down, it's really, really helping and protecting my face, admittedly blinding me, and it would be more of a reactionary thing, but it shows the extra protection that these can have if you really, really need it at the last second. Yeah, it really does ring. But if you can hear, it means you're alive, which is great. Now, speaking of great, let's finally move on to great helms.
Yes, I am ready. I am so ready for this.
You just want to smack me upside the face all day, don't you?
I don't even want to damage this beautiful little thing.
Good, because that's an expensive one. A great helm wasn't just worn by itself. You'll notice, if we take a look at these ones, which are called Sugarloafs, they're quite a bit bigger than this, because this was designed to be worn individually, whereas this is a bit more historically accurate, not in design, but in size. And the reason being, because you would actually wear a padded coif, a chain coif, and then a Ceraville, Chevalier, which is a close or skull cap, which is worn underneath the helmet. So you can take off that giant helmet, you're still really well protected. And you kind of want that much padding on the inside of these things, because if you don't, when you wear them, they can quite easily spin around.
I take it you're ready to get hit?
Nah, not when the thing is sideways on my head. No, that would be dangerous. But you can, and it has happened before, that you get hit and they tilt and they spin. So when you're wearing a great helm, you really want to have lots of padding. Though the more padding, the more heat, and the harder it is to be heard. Now with the Sugarloaf specifically, which this one isn't a completely historical design, but you'll notice we've got the same problem that we had before when we were talking about the murder helm. This has a nice tilted crest. So when you get hit, it deflects off your shoulders, it deflects off and you barely even feel it. I have seen people take two-handed axes to these helmets and it kind of just stops. So as beautiful as these helmets are and as funny as they are in the memes, for adventurers, this one's probably a bit better. Something that's really important with having your field of vision blocked off is not necessarily seeing down, as you've seen when we keep throwing helmets on your head, which I hope you like, by the way, but it's being able to see left and right down behind you. So I'm going to jump ahead just a smidge. But with a helmet like this, you'll notice that the vision goes backwards, a little left and right. But being able to see down on both sides means when you look behind you, you look down and to the left and down and to the right. You don't look up. So having peripheral vision that goes beyond what you can normally see without really stretching is much more important than being able to look up and down. And something else that great helms had was the Orlais, or the fabric ring around the head, as well as the crest with feathers and horns and bulls and all sorts of decorative stuff. I think that's enough of talk. You just have a sixth sense for this. I think that's enough of talking about the helmets. How about we hit them a little bit and see how they hold up?
I don't want to hit that one. I love that one too much.
I'll hit that one then.
Fine, fine. In this case, if you're very gentle, I will allow it.
The nerve of this guy, let me hit him. So I think we've shown that these are pretty great, but these helmets did kind of evolve into the bassinet, which doesn't look really like much, but all that padding now being stitched in, as well as you'll see these little hinge points where it's specifically designed to have a chain aventail that sits around the shoulders like a gorget and comes right up under your throat. And then for the piece de resistance of these, you had attachable and detachable visors. Three of the most popular ones are the clap visor, which is just a great all-round visor that can either tilt up or, depending on how it's attached, tilt sideways. We'll get to that. As well as the hound skull with the pointed nose. I've put one of those on. It is fairly hard to see in them, but you still feel really, really protected. And lastly is the Griffin. Now, the Griffin style visor is argued amongst historians, saying that it's not quite historical. There's a lot of HMB fighters that love using this, and with good reason. The thing is gorgeous. But there are quite a few people who are arguing that it's not as historical as what everyone is making it out to be. But the design is kind of used quite a bit, especially in fantasy and for adventurers, just because it's gorgeous, it's mean looking, I love it. Something that's great about the bassinets is they have really good back protection. A lot of them are ridged with this armor angling, and you can see and breathe completely clearly out of this. Whilst when having the Aventail, you are encased in chain with everything but your face. You put a nasal on it, which is historical, and you are all but completely protected against everything, maybe with the exception of direct stabs. Now with the visors specifically, you'll notice on some of these images that they can be hinged at the top so that you can lift them up. But at the same time, some of them are not only hinged here at the sides with pivots, like we'll show you in a couple of other helmets, to lift the whole visor in one go, but those vertical hinges have pins through them that are also horizontal hinges. So you can open the helmet almost any way you really want. It just takes whatever design you're after, and this is all historical. We've got helmets with all of these types of hinges and pins and rivets and all sorts of stuff because, well, engineering is amazing. And having so many visor options also means that if, as an adventurer, you and your D&D party decide to go 100% murder hobo, you swap between visors and town guards and never know. So I think we know what's going to happen when we hit this, but for the sake of completion, we should probably give it a few bashes. Where'd tyrants go? Okay, so let's try this one.
Oh, what is this? Monty Python? What is this?
Your father was a hamster and your mother smelled of elderberries. Ah. Now moving a little out of the medieval period and into the Renaissance, we have the bar butte helm. This is gorgeous. It's not my favorite helm, but it is mean looking. These weren't always shaped like this. This is a little fantasy, but sometimes they had what they call the T-shaped bar butte or the T-faced bar butte, where the side cheeks would really hug the side of the face. So when you put it on, it is quite form-fitting, and on a T-bar butte, these parts would come down about here. In fact, I don't have a T-bar butte here, but I've got one in the studio, so we'll put one on you to see what you think. Now let me put this down, because, hey, Tyrant's left me a sword. Again, these are great with the exception of not really being able to see. So from back here, you're going to be able to see most everything I do. But if I get really sneaky and I get right up close to you and I go to swing, you can probably see what's going to happen because you know where my shoulder is. But if we change that to a stab halfway through and you lift up the visor, it's no longer back here as part of a big swing. It's swapped halfway through and stabbed. So you could be ready to do something and you're already hit. There are some disadvantages to it, but like I said earlier, all you have to do is just keep moving your head. And as an adventurer, you're perfectly fine with those blind spots. Plus, with the bar butte, you can breathe really freely and all of that heat doesn't build up. They really are great. But speaking of probably the worst vision for a fighter on foot is the frogmouth helmet. Now, as you can see, you have really good peripheral vision in a frogmouth helmet, but you can't see anything below here. In fact, I could be wearing a tutu. You wouldn't even be able to tell. But as Metatron was talking about a little while ago, this is a great helmet for horseback. Oh, it almost doesn't matter what is hitting you. You've got hardly any chance of being hit by anything. And if something really dangerous is approaching towards your face, like a stab of a lance or something, just tilt. Like I said, when you get to foot, bit of a different story, but you're still virtually impenetrable in this, almost. Now, before we get to the very end of the table, I want to talk about the Italian Sallet. Well, actually, I want to talk about the German evolution from the Italian Sallet, because the Italian Sallet did start kind of like a bassinet with a bit more curl to the neck. But by the time the Germans got to it, they lifted the helmet to really protect the neck with a lot of articulation, a lot of flexibility, and a visor for the top of the head, leaving the bottom of the face completely exposed, which seems like a bad idea, but it gives troops the ability to breathe really freely and yell and be heard by everyone else. And if they needed protection here for whatever reason, there was a bevel that they could add to the entire thing, basically encasing your entire head in steel with nothing but a small slit to see out of and enough breathing capabilities for airflow. Really, really gorgeous design that was used by the German knights. But we get to the peak of the knightly helmets when we've got knights in shining armor, which is where we get to the closed helmets and the armettes. And a Shad. Hey, Shad.
I totally have to join you for this part
That's
because
fair
I
enough.
love the... What have you got there, Tyrone?
A smoothie.
If I wasn't allowed to take it, you're not allowed to take it. Put it down. Nah.
Everyone is stealing the barrel helms.
Because it's so cool.
I mean, you're not wrong.
But speaking of cool helmets,
Yes.
the late medieval stage of helmets.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to join you for this is this interesting beast right here.
Now, it's a bit ahistorical.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about, because this design comes up decent amount here and there. It existed before the video game For Honor, but For Honor grabbed the design and has made it very, very prominent.
And it's very, very popular in the LARP community. There are a lot of people that are heavily armored in LARP that just go for this helmet.
Because it looks so cool.
It does. It actually look, I thought about buying it myself, but then I looked at the steel that it's made out of, and it won't work for what I do.
Exactly.
It's too light.
So the interesting element, it's a bit ahistorical, a bit of a mishmash. It's not to say a helmet like this couldn't appear in the medieval period, but the most historical part about it is actually the barboot underneath.
Yes, yes. And as I just discussed, we've got lots of different types of barboots where you've got little visors like this, or they come right in close to the face. We've got the T-barbute.
That's my favorite barbute, the
Really?
T-barbutes. I just love them. And so matching it with this type of visor is a bit ahistorical.
It is, but it almost seems to take a section of history and meld it together.
Yes.
Because you go and take a look at the bassinets, like we just talked about, with the different visors that you had on them. This is kind of close to the Griffin visor. And it's also close in regards of it has hinges and pins. So it looks like you'd be able to take off the plate and just have an open face helm.
Exactly,
So,
multifunctional.
Exactly, but when you take a look at the different styles of design, you have the center crest that goes all the way back in history to the Roman design, and it almost seems to sit side by side with an armet or with a closed helmet. I just think visually, it looks like it's from the later period of medieval history.
The helmet I'm currently holding is called a visored barbute, but as Nate mentioned before, there's much closer historical examples of this style of visor matched with bassinets, like the Griffin helm that he mentioned, as well as a couple of others that you can find online that are based off of medieval artwork.
And there's a couple of interesting things that I noticed about this as well, is that if this did appear historically, even in this design, there's going to be some subtle but important changes. This one has been made to basically be used in LARP and other things like that. And one of the things that they've adapted to make it more LARP friendly is the eye slits are much bigger than what you would usually find.
Yes.
If this appeared historically, they're going to be much thinner. Now, it does work. Like being as big as this, when you put this on, your field of vision is actually quite impressive.
I haven't tried. I might.
You want to give this a go?
I think I'll steal that for a moment. Now I've put this on as a barbute. That's not bad.
It's not bad.
Wait, that's not bad.
Also, like you look at history, I'm sure you're going to find helmets that actually have wider eye slits, because even though it's not as protective as it could be, it's more protective if it didn't have a visor at all.
It is, absolutely. And you've got helmets without eye slits.
Exactly.
Completely. As we were discussing before, it's just, it makes your field of vision a lot better, allows you to breathe, and it allows you to not heat up inside the helmet with your breath.
Yes, yeah. And the ventilation is surprisingly good. So,
I like that it's lifted off the nose.
yes.
I really like
well,
that.
do you see the profile, how it comes out to give more room for the nose, which actually gives it a very cool look.
That's what I was about to say. It makes it look meaner. It's great.
Yeah. If we were to go to strict historical accuracy, my favorite fully accurate helmet is the armet.
Which you actually don't have an armet here. You do have a closed helmet.
That's what's really interesting. I'm actually not a full expert in helmets, and Nate was able to inform me this isn't strictly an armet,
No.
even though it has the profile that you usually associate with them.
Which armets and closed helmets, which not to be confused with an enclosed helmet. Historians love naming stuff so confusingly.
Yes.
But a closed helmet, meaning it closes on your face, is all around one pivot point. So the visor, the main part of the bevel, the neck, all just come off from one pivot point. Whereas on an armet, this will happen, but you'll also have hinges at the back of the neck, that all open up.
And
In
it
fact,
closes around, doesn't it? Like right on the chin?
it does. It all closes really, really tight. So they've called the one that closes really tight the armettes, and the one that doesn't close. It's not confusing at all. But I do love these.
Oh,
these
they look
these
great.
are just it's the knight in shining armor look. So I'd pretty much finished talking about helmets. Your timing is perfect. I was only going to bring up one more quick point, which is for adventurers, something that I've found in 20 or so years of fighting is this. Now, this is a suspension rig. It's not usually talked about,
Oh, yes.
but suspension rigs I've found are much more amazing than using a padded arming cap or a padded coif.
Because this has a suspension rig in it as well.
It does, which I really like. And the reason being is because if you're wearing a padded coif, then it's steel, padding, and your head. So when you get hit, it is still straight against your head. And with no hair, you really feel it. But whereas this, the reason it's called the suspension rig is it actually hovers the
does.
helmet off your head. So you're never getting directly struck because there's this suspension of air between the leather and the string holding the helmet off your head. So you feel it a lot less.
And then, if you want, you can actually wear a coif with it.
Yes.
Because that's what I do with this helmet. This helmet is actually too big in circumference and it sits too low without a coif. But because it's got the suspension rig and the coif, it becomes really comfortable
Yes.
and very snug. And then as soon as you strap this baby underneath, this helmet ain't going anywhere.
I love it. But I was sort of getting towards final thoughts specifically for adventurers. So my thoughts, at least, it's really important for vision that seeing left and right is far more important than seeing up and down. So having things like the frogmouth helm doesn't matter so much as long as you're moving your head around. Not being able to see left and right, as we can see on this when I talked about peripheral vision, you look down and to the left and down and to the right. I would much rather that than be able to see my opponent's feet because I want to see who's behind me.
And interesting, when you're looking at adventuring, a lot of these helmets, especially the later period ones, like the closed helmets,
Yes,
that is designed to counteract medieval weaponry.
yes.
It's kind of the arms race between weapons and armor. As an adventurer, you're not necessarily going to be facing lots of human opponents.
No, you're not.
You're going to be facing a lot of beasts, monsters, and less intelligent ones. Now, if you are going to be fighting bandits and human opponents,
And wind elementals.
wow, pick it up.
Yeah.
Something like a close helm, yeah, great pick. But if you want a more kind of, I guess, multi-purpose helmet that gives perhaps better breathing, better field of vision, surprisingly, I do like this, more fantasy design.
I do as well, though I still have to go back to the old kettle helm. They just have so many pros and cons. And yes, your face isn't protected, but as I said, one quick tilt down, you have a shield in front of your face. So breathing, vision, it's just, I know it's a level 1 helmet. I just love them.
Well, here's the other thing. There is so much emphasis, especially in role-playing games, put on armor. When this is it's the wrong way of thinking. The very first bit of armor, anyway, this is true historically, by the way, is the helmet before the chest armor. Your head is the most vulnerable thing, and it's the highest priority to protect. And so historically, when people going off to battle, the first main bit of armor they'll try and get is a helmet. And they would prefer having a metal helmet and just cloth on them, like a tunic or just basic gambeson,
Exactly.
because this is so important.
Because I can cover myself with a shield. I can, learn very quickly how to get my hand out of the way with sword strikes. But it's really hard to protect this all the time. Take a look at any of these reenactments. Let's just zoom in on this one. Take a look at any of these helmets and you can see how often you get hit on the head.
And it's hard to translate how solid real helmets are.
Yes.
This is insane.
Well, actually, what we could do is we could put this on Boromir and give it a proper good shot.
Oh, yeah, because, seriously, this helmet, it's made for LARP. It would dent and cave
Instantly,
in. It's so thin and lower quality. This is at least 2 mil thick. This is
16 gauge.
it's
good.
You'd never be able to chop through that thing.
No,
And
so-
when you hold it, wow, do you notice the difference?
There is definitely holding one in one hand and one in the other. You do immediately feel like that one's so much heavier. But how about we get one of the helmets? I'll grab my one so as not to hurt any of the helmets from the Geelong crew, but let's put it on Boromir and give it a couple of shots. Boromir has no chin. Like, so we've managed to, there he is. We've managed to put my helmet on here, but we're going to put a nail in the back of Boromir.
I think we can manage that. We abuse this thing. There's so many arrow shots in him. This is a solid helmet.
It is,
This is great.
And like I said, this is my actual helmet. This is how much that I trust still being able to go to training next week.
And I have the perfect sword to use against this, because there is a reality. Helmets are so well built, like real helmets, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you try and strike it as hard as you can with a real sword, you can easily chip, dent the sword, or even break it. Because a sword is thin, it's meant to cut flesh, and armor's meant to, like, you're not going to get through armor with a sword. It's proper made armor, okay? That's why armor was so effective.
That does look like a heavy grade sword,
This thing, right? I keep around for this very purpose. It was donated.
What is that handle?
This is the other feel. It was donated by a friend a long time ago. It's overbuilt. It's got a full, it's got a full metal handle. This is metal, and there's things wrong with it. Like, it's a full round handle, so there's no way to index the blade with it.
Is that welded to the handle?
I think it's all welded together.
Oh, this is probably going to snap about here. We got safety gear?
We do. Because, but it's overbuilt, it's rusted, but it's the perfect thing where if it does break, it's here for that, okay? And it's overbuilt because if this is able to damage a helmet, all right, then that means a sword that's thinner, that's made, probably won't do that. But if it can't damage that, no sword is going to damage it.
Now, I can tell you that it will damage the helmet. It'll scratch it. It'll probably even dent it, but the suspension rig underneath, you know, you'll get thrown back a bit, but that's about it.
Well, the other good thing about Boromir, he has enough kind of deflection that
it's a bit more realistic.
Yeah, exactly, because when you get hit, it's not like it's on a solid thing. It transfers force into the body. Now, it can be good and bad. It can damage the neck, but also it removes a lot of the force as well. And so, because Boromir has that give, it's going to have the same effect.
Good analogy for it. All right. Well, let me get some safety gear and we'll give this a shot.
Awesome. I was kind of expecting that to happen.
Now, I put a bit of force into that. I know I didn't do a lot of
no wonder.
Kinetic linking.
This is a rat tail
the whole way down.
thing.
Now, I put a bit of force into it. Admittedly, it wasn't complete kinetic linking, but we can take a look at the helmet. Like, I've dented up my helmet, but it did not penetrate.
Yeah.
In fact, that would throw you back. But it'll be hard to see on camera, but underneath there, you take a look at where the suspension rig ends, like you feel that, where the suspension rig ends and where that bump starts.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually have made contact with the skull.
No.
And just so everyone knows, this is called a rat tail tang.
Oh, yeah, they're
okay?
horrible.
And the reason why they're bad is what we got to see in that test. It's this rat tail tangs are ones that are like this thin all the way through.
Yes, and there's a few different types of rat tail tangs, but something like this, where what are the shoulders of the tank? And they're square shoulders too. Nah, I can see why you wanted to break this. Where's Tyrant? Can we weld this together and just have a continuous break piece?
Well, these pieces are pretty good.
Oh, they're right.
Like, we could.
What's that, a scent stopper, Bishop?
Yeah, we could actually reuse these. Hey, Tyrant! Remember how we were needing a pummel and crossguard
for a bit chunky, but
I don't
you could grind them down a little
For a falchion?
For a certain falchion.
I mean, if you want, that's fine.
What about that handle? Kidding.
Yeah, the handle's junk.
Well, I'm going to be taking these. I've got a project that I think these will be useful for.
Something else we can break?
No.
But I want to. But I think we've covered a lot of the different helmets. Sorry, Boromir, I think we've covered a lot of the different helmets today, especially for use in adventurers.
Oh, yeah.
For how much you can see, how much you can breathe, talking through them, as well as hearing through them. So there's a lot of things that you don't necessarily think about until you do it for, a little bit.
Absolutely brilliant. I just love it. And Nate was the one who was able to find these helmets, and you've been able to get them from, shout out to the reenactment group.
To Geelong Crusaders, as well as Saraf from Geelong, who ended up lending us their collection for this video. So thank you again,
Thank you, guys. And thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. We hope to see you on the next video here on Shadowversity. So until that time,